Hi everyone, I'm Amy Peterson, and I'm joined by Angela McGuire and Thom Jones. We're excited to welcome you to Tools for Evidence-Based Decision Making, 3 Circles and the FAIR Test. This poster will introduce 2 resources developed by the National Center for Systemic Improvement, or NCSI, and share how the Wyoming Department of Education has used these resources as part of their work to improve results for students with disabilities. But why are we talking about these 2 resources? We know that you spend a lot of time focused on supporting educators to select and implement evidence-based practices. We want to challenge you to think about using a decision-making process that intentionally collects and integrates information from multiple sources, including the voices of families, students, and practitioners. The first step in that process is defining our question. We know practices are not universally successful, so to help us in selecting a practice, we need to identify for whom we are selecting the practice. What are the unique characteristics of that population or subpopulation, the type of intervention we're looking for, and our desired outcomes. Next, we need to consider the available evidence. This is where our 3 circles of evidence come into play. One circle that you're likely very familiar with is the circle on best available research evidence. We want to identify and evaluate available practices for our desired population and outcomes from the research literature. In addition, we want to consider 2 other circles, the family and student wisdom and values and the professional wisdom and values. We need to consider the culture, values, experience, and priorities of these stakeholders and how they impact the practices that might be the best fit for our question defined in step 1. Now we can think about this at the individual student level or for groups of students, in which case we might consider looking at consensus documents or holding stakeholder meetings in order to get the perspectives of our stakeholders. Now I'll turn it over to Angela for step 3.
Thanks, Amy. Once all of the evidence has been gathered, determine if the practice is being considered past the FAIR test. FAIR is an acronym, F-A-I-R, for characteristics of a practice that we want to consider before adoption. F and A stand for feasibility and acceptability and are applicable for the student, the family, and the professionals working with the student. Considerations for feasibility include such things as readiness and costs. Acceptability encompasses both practical and cultural aspects. Some approaches may be too intense, too intrusive, or just a bad match for some students or professionals. I is for impact. Look for positive results, but also watch out for reports of unintended or negative impacts. R is for relevance. Look for practices that have worked for populations similar to or inclusive of the one being considered. If all practices fail the FAIR test, we may need to revisit one or more of the circles that Amy described to look for new evidence or consider different interventions. The final step is to choose the practice that best suits our need. Of course, the work doesn't stop there. Actually, it's just starting. We've invited Thom Jones from the Wyoming Department of Education to share his state's experience using the FAIR test, along with other tools and resources, to review or select interventions within an MTSS framework. Thom?
In Wyoming, we use the FAIR test as a component of an overall strategy in developing intervention tiers within an MTSS framework. We use the FAIR test in conjunction with 2 other tools, the first of which is the National Center on Intensive Interventions Tools Chart, which we use to assess the effectiveness and alignment of a given intervention. The second tool is the Center on MTSS Risk Verification Document, or those Tier 2 procedures. With these tools together, we use the FAIR test to really guide the discussion for buildings and districts in either reviewing existing interventions or selecting new ones to fill identified gaps. The initial work is done with the district and or building MTSS leadership teams, but have also adopted the FAIR test in use with our discussions with individual practitioners who are engaged in our SIP-aligned data-based individualization work. In using the FAIR test in this manner, it really keeps the needs of the students at the forefront of all discussions while also taking into account the needs of the building while promoting discussion and buy-in within the faculty.
Thanks, Thom. To learn more, please visit the resource library on the NCSI website at ncsi.wested.org. Thanks for watching our poster. We hope you have a great conference.